What's up, guys? I hope this video finds you well. I got another video for you today on just some more fun stuff, some more fun facts and trivia and photos and cards and baseball stories and just the kind of stuff I love. I kind of do it, for myself, and then, sometimes I'm like, well, I might as well just share some of it with you guys since I'm always studying this stuff and doing this stuff anyways. So we'll get started with this one. Who is the player in the MLB that has played for the most teams and has played for 14 different teams? If you know, you know. If not, it is Edwin Jackson. Here's a minor league card I got of his, I believe from 2002 there. But yeah, so he was a prospect when I bought this. And he did become pretty good, but yeah, he played for 14 teams. I mentioned this also because there's only two guys that played for 13 teams, and one of them was Octavio Dotel, the former Astro, amongst obviously many other teams. He passed away in that building collapse in the Dominican. So shout out to him and his family. A very, very sad thing. A lot of people passed away there, but Dotel was one of them. He was one of the Astros' great closers. He's the one that struck out 4 in 1 inning in that no-hitter against the Yankees. But he played for 13 teams. Rest in peace. But Edwin Jackson is the reigning king of the most teams in MLB. He played for 14 different teams. Just craziness. This next one's just a little story I heard the other day on a broadcast, and it kind of revealed something to light that a lot of people didn't know about, because the guy telling it was on the inside and it wasn't broadcast and told about back then. But in 1980, there was a prospect named George Wright, not the first ever baseball superstar from the 1800s, this guy here. So he had played 5 or 6 years in the minors, and he was doing okay in spring training and whatnot, but the Rangers had acquired Mickey Rivers. So Mick the Quick from the Yankees. He was a good player, all-star with the Yankees. He had been battling a knee injury, and he was coming back from a knee injury. And he would have bumped George Wright off of the roster. So George Wright was about to go home and tell his wife, the baseball thing is over. He spent 5 or 6 years. If he didn't make the team, he was going to be done. He was not going to be kept in baseball at all anymore after a few years toiling in the minors. So Mickey Rivers, now this wasn't known. He didn't tell people about this, obviously, because it would have been frowned upon. But he was coming back from that pretty serious knee injury. But with 3 days left or so in spring training, he faked a hamstring injury just so that George Wright would have to start the season with the big club. And he would have to come up and, get some time. And then from there, you never know what happens. Mickey knew he would be playing at some point, but he didn't want George to go back and tell his wife, that it was all over. And he'd have to find a different job and all that. So Mickey faked a hamstring injury so that he wouldn't be coming back as quick, give George Wright a chance to stay on the roster and play. And then George Wright ended up playing 5 or 6 major league seasons. Played really, really good when he first came up after this. Was real, real hot. And ended up getting over 5 years of time in the majors and making a little career out of it. But it was all because of Mickey. And the guy on the broadcast was just telling the story because he was, intimately involved and he knew what was going on. But, obviously it isn't something that Mickey could have told about back then, because that would have been not right. But he was doing it out of the kindness of his heart for George, and it worked out. And George got a few years of major league service and a little career out of it. So wonderful story. I like Mickey Rivers even more now than I did. But yeah, so I got a couple 84 Donruss beautiful cards just to represent that story while I told it. But yeah, I'll keep these together now that I know that story. But yeah, so behind the scenes, there was more going on than what you read about when you read about George Wright coming up and all that kind of stuff. They didn't know that Mickey was kind of feigning a minor injury just so that he would have to stay on the roster and not have to go home and tell his wife that he was out of baseball. Ended up with quite a bit of playing time in a little career there. So very, very cool. Very cool of Mickey. Super cool story. Love that kind of stuff. Next thing up, we'll look at some of these, but this is a cool picture. Ty Cobb, Thomas Edison, and Connie Mack in 27. They were at the spring training camp. It's just really interesting sometimes to realize who the contemporaries were and the famous people at the time. But yeah, you don't think about Thomas Edison with baseball, but there he is with Cobb and Connie Mack. Very, very cool photo there. This one's interesting. Most multi-home run games. Check that out. Babe is still at the top. Then you got Bond. So those are the two best players of all time. Very interesting top view of the list. Then you got Sosa even ahead of McGwire. 69 multi-home run games for Sosa. Then McGwire, Pujols, Mays, Aaron, A-Rod, Fox, and Griffey. Very interesting list. It would have been hard to guess all of this stuff if you hadn't seen that, but very, very cool thing there. Most multi-home run games of all time. Tony Gwynn, we've talked about it many times, one of the best hitters of all time. As far as average and hits, he had 10 more 4-hit games than multi-strikeout games. Wow, that is not happening today. And we're not talking about 4 strikeout games. We're just talking about more 4-hit games than even 2 strikeouts in a game in his whole career. 45 4-hit games, 35 multi-strikeout games. Tony was something special. How about Dave Winfield? Crazy but true. Dave Winfield never spent a day in the minor leagues. He went straight to the Padres after being drafted 4th overall in '73. But he was such an amazing athlete, of course, he was drafted by the NBA, ABA, NFL, and MLB. Just amazing. Never spent a day in the minors, drafted by 4 different leagues. One of the best athletes of all time, Mr. Winfield. Now, famously, Will Clark hit a home run in his first at-bat in the majors against Nolan Ryan. But check this out. Will Clark homered in his first at-bat of A-ball, double A-ball, triple A ball, and that famous one in the majors. Will the Thrill was something special. Homered in his first at-bat at every single professional level. That is super cool. I bet you didn't know that. Here's a picture of Jackie. He's packing up, going on to his retirement, but he's sitting there in the locker room. Just kind of a real poignant photo there. Got some of his gear around him, stuff packed up. He chose not to return to Ebbets Field for a final game ceremony or anything because he had been traded to the Giants, but he declined and decided to retire. And he was packing up right there for the last time in the locker room. Interesting photo. Here's one. So here's a kid being carried off the field in a Little League game. You can guess who that is if you want. But that is a Little League game being carried off the field. That is Collier Yastrzemski. That is Yaz being carried off the field as a Little League child. Super cool photo. Just don't see that stuff all the time. Mark the Bird Fidrich, one of my favorite guys. There he is with Big Bird. If you don't know where he got the name, he got it in 1974 with the Bristol Tigers. The single A team, the assistant Jeff Hogan saw his gangly build and curly locks and dubbed him the Bird after Big Bird. And there's a famous Sports Illustrated issue with him posing with Big Bird. But there he is. That's how it started. An assistant coach with a single A team. Gave him the super famous nickname. 20 highest single season intentional walk totals in MLB history. Barry Bonds is almost all of them. You got Sosa, Pujols, McCovey, a few other guys mixed in there. But look at 1 and 2. 120 in 2004. Almost twice as many as the second best ever. And he's got the top 3, and he's basically got almost all the rest of them. Just amazing. Nobody wanted to pitch to Barry. He was the best to ever do it. Here's a cool picture. Michael Jordan and Frank Thomas, spring training 1994. Oddly enough, my only spring training I ever went to was 1994. But I did not get to see these guys. That would have been super cool, but Michael Jordan there. A couple of goats in one photo. This is a cool photo. Whitey Ford and Satchel Paige. Just looking at grips, talking baseball, talking pitching. I love that kind of stuff. Super cool photo there. Wonder what they were talking about with that grip. Selfies. You think selfies is a new thing, but it is not. So check this out. Johnny Bench and Tom Seaver taking a selfie with an old school camera in the ballpark. How cool is that? Selfies are not a new thing. There you go. Bench and Seaver taking one themselves. 1937, Fenway Park. The Red Sox field. Look at these folks. They are perched up on the supports for the sign to try to get some free baseball. 1937. Risking life and limb, crawling up there. Super uncomfortable seats just to catch some baseball for free. Unbelievable. Super cool photo there. I just love that kind of stuff. Well, you think all this technology is new, but check this out. Elston Howard in 1960s. Here he is. 1960s spring training. Check out this gizmo. Firing up pop flies for Elston Howard to catch without having to use a fungo or hit the bat, hit it up in the air. They just used pressure and shot it up in the air for him to catch balls. That is super cool. Would have never known about that had I not seen that. Here's one, Satch. Got his name Satch up there, Satchel Paige. Check this out. He relaxes in a new easy chair in the Browns bullpen. Bill Veeck had provided the chair before he Browns Yankees game. So everybody else sitting on the hard bench over here, he's got this lap of luxury. I love that look on his face. Satchel Paige. That's super cool. There has only been 4 seasons in Major League history of someone hitting 50 home runs and having 200 hits. Only 4 times it's ever been done. You can probably guess Babe Ruth did it 1921. Hack Wilson did it in 1930. Of course, he got 191 RBIs. That's the record. Jimmy Fox did it in 1932. So all these are super old, except for that one. Alex Rodriguez did it in 2001. The only 4 seasons in Major League history, 50 or more homers, 200 hits. Amazing. Amazing how rare that feat is. Now, this is not a good picture, and there is a video that you can watch of this, but Babe Ruth, they did a stunt where the pilot took the airplane up and dropped the ball from the sky, and he was standing in the field there and had to catch the ball coming down from the airplane, and of course he did. But really funny to me, the stunts that they did. Shout out to Shane Shoebox. We got a Zamboni sighting here, but the opening day for the Blue Jays at their old field, Exhibition Stadium, 1977, they had to use a Zamboni to clear the field because it had snow. Oh man, you would not see this today. Crazy stuff, but they had to clear the snow off of the baseball diamond. Super cool. Only 2 players in Major League history have recorded 200 or more hits in 8 consecutive seasons. They're both right there. Ichiro Suzuki and Willie Keeler. Keeler was born in 1872. Only other guy to do it is right there. and he didn't get to the major leagues till 27. Old Hoss Radbourn, one of the best players of the 1800s, of course, superstar. He is thought to be the first ever picture of any kind flipping the bird in a photograph right there. So he was a surly character. But this photo is from 1886 with the Boston Bean Eaters. I guess they love eating beans. I don't know why they would call the team that, but but he is thought to be the first ever person ever photographed flipping the bird right there. And it was a baseball photo. This one's cool. Picture with the Dodgers holding tryouts in Puerto Rico. This guy right here with the number 12 piece of paper on his back, that is Roberto Clemente. So, 18-year-old Roberto Clemente, 1952. Dodgers signed him to a minor league system and initially sent to AAA in Montreal. The Dodgers attempted to hide Clemente, but it backfired due to the bonus baby rule. Pittsburgh Pirates were able to draft him in 54 Rule 5 draft for $4,000. But they were trying to hide him in their system. But this is when they were doing tryouts in Puerto Rico. Bunch of guys who knew that guy would become what we know about Roberto Clemente. This one's cool. You got Yogi Berra and Joe Garagiola. Now it says Garagiola here for some reason. But they grew up in the same Italian neighborhood. And there is Yogi right there. Joe over here. But playing with the kids on the sand lot in the 1930s. Grew up as childhood friends. You just don't see photos like that too often. I thought it was too cool. Check out Yogi there. That's pretty awesome. Here's one of Ted Williams throwing out the ceremonial first pitch, 1953 All-Star game, but he was deployed at that point in Cincinnati, so he had made a surprise appearance on a short military leave and came to throw out the first pitch. How cool was that? Teddy ball game was awesome. This is super cool. Check this thing out. A giant gizmo. Look at all these people looking up at it. But this is in the 1912 World Series. So the the radio broadcast didn't become big until the 20s. But this was a playograph that was in the streets where people could come by and look at it, and they would follow what's happening in the World Series. And there would be a manual, a guy back there moving everything around manually to update where the players were, runners, what was happening in the game. Just super cool. A playograph, 1912 World Series. You might recognize some of those names. Pretty awesome. Pretty awesome right there. Didn't even know about that myself. Hammer and Hank Aaron. Of course, they're called the Hammer. This picture here. Hammer 44. This is not Hank Aaron, but a kid that looked just like him. He was a bat boy for the A's in their great seasons when they were winning all those 3 world championships in the early 70s. This was their bat boy. And he looked so much like Hank that they started calling him Hammer. And today, you know this guy as MC Hammer. That's right. That is a young MC Hammer as a bat boy of the A's. He got his nickname because he looked like Hank Aaron back in those days. So that is not a young Hank Aaron. That is MC Hammer as a major league bat boy. That is just super, super cool. Never would have guessed that. Here's another one of these things that I love so much. Andruw Jones from age 19 to 30. Mike Trout from age 19 to 30. Drop whatever you're doing, folks. Andruw Jones. Other than however they calculate WAR. I do not know how they calculate WAR exactly, but Andruw was better at everything. He had more of all of it. More hits, more homers, a ton more RBI from age 19 to 30. And he was winning Gold Gloves every year. So I don't know how his WAR is that much less, but regardless, ballparks, all the different differences they bring into this stuff. But there you go. Andruw Jones was really, really good. Super underrated player. Of course, Joe DiMaggio played 13 full seasons, had 9 World Series. What a fabulous player. Joined the Air Force for World War II, then played again. Won 9 World Series in 13 full seasons. New York Knickerbockers, first baseball team to wear uniforms. And they wore these straw hats, white shirts, and blue trousers. Check that out, man. Amazing. Those guys were playing baseball like that. Super awesome. Who was the last pitcher to start 3 consecutive games? 3 consecutive games. If you said Zack Greinke, you would be correct. You'll never see that again. But there were some weird circumstances where he left the game early, pitched the next day, had the All-Star break or something like that, and then pitched again. He had 3 straight starts for Milwaukee. Pretty interesting stuff. You wouldn't have thought that would have been happening in modern day baseball. This is just a cool shot. Nippon Life Stadium in Osaka, Japan in 1960 with the Osaka Castle visible across the street. How cool is that? You can watch baseball and you can see the castle up there above, lit up at night. That's just a super cool shot, if you ask me. This shot will tell you how things have changed, how things were much more casual back then. But here's a charity softball game. Now, the catcher is kind of cheating because you can see his name there, but that is Johnny Bench, Thurman Munson at bat. And check it out, Tom Terrific pitching. So, celebrity charity softball game. Thurman Munson, Bench, and Seaver at their positions, just casually wearing shorts and tall socks and just not looking like superstars. Just amazing stuff. A very svelte Tony Gwynn playing basketball, San Diego State, 1980. Was breaking all kinds of assist records. 2-sport star, of course. Definitely could have played in the NBA. But there he was. He was super fit back then, holding the all-time assist record. Very, very cool. He was an amazing athlete from a very young age. Pete Rose and Johnny Bench, 1971. They owned a car dealership together in the early 70s after the 1970 baseball season. And they partnered to invest in a Lincoln Mercury dealership in Dayton, Ohio. And there they are. I don't know why he's putting his finger right on that mirror, but your guess is as good as mine. You got some people checking it out from the shelf up above, but super cool. Those guys going into business together for a Lincoln Mercury dealership. This one's near and dear to my heart. Roy Hoffines is the guy that put the whole thing together for the Astrodome. And here he is with Willie Mays on his 37th birthday. Judge Roy Hoffines at the Astrodome. This is in the dome. You can see the Exploring scoreboard back there with Mays on it. At a 569-pound cake, 1 pound for each of Mays' home runs at the time. May 6, 1968 at the Astrodome. 569-pound cake. And Willie's sitting there in the middle of it in the Astrodome. That is super duper cool. Here's Babe Ruth's World War I draft card. Dated June 5th, 1917. It was part of the Selective Service Act that required all men between 21 and 45 to register for potential military service. How would you like to have a George Herman Ruth autograph instead of just Babe? That has got to be super rare. But the thing that struck me about this, and it has nothing to do with this, these people aren't saying anything about it, but his birthday is known to be February 6, 1895. This says February 7th, 1894. What in the world? Is it a falsified document? I don't know. Just too funny. Obviously, it says we're employed Fenway Park right there with Boston. But George Herman Ruth, February 7th, 1894 birthday. That is incorrect, as far as we know. Shout out to Mookie Chilson. How about Bob Gibson, the greatest Mets pitching coach of all time, no doubt. Everybody listening to him saying something, but that's just a cool shot. Don't really think of him as being the Mets pitching coach, but he was. How about Mickey Mantle in high school on the left, playing high school basketball with the short shorts. The Commerce Comet. Very cool. I don't know if it's some foreshadowing, but he has some kind of patch on his knee. Too bad he had too many injuries. But this here is a really cool shot. So this is Willie McCovey waiting his turn to hit at spring training in Phoenix, Arizona. And this shot immediately struck me. I knew this shot, and now I get to see the context for this shot. It is so cool because Stadium Club did a card, and I have the numbered to 25 rainbow foil, 19 of 25, right there. Check that out. So this card was made from that image, standing there at spring training, waiting to get into the cage. But yeah, rainbow foil board, Willie McCovey. But there's the original shot right there. How cool is that? I think it's very cool. I'm really glad to have that card. Pretty tough to come by. Another sign of how the times have changed completely. Lou Gehrig trying out for the role of Tarzan in the 30s. Obviously, he was not picked, but yeah, these guys were doing all kinds of jobs, doing all kinds of weird things, but that is Lou Gehrig, the legend himself, trying out for a Hollywood movie as Tarzan. Interesting stuff. That would not be happening today. Brooklyn Dodgers had satin uniforms from 44 to 48 that they thought would catch the light at night. So they would be seen better under the lights with these night games. Check that out. So they debuted them in May 12th, 1944 in night games, aiming to capitalize on the growing popularity of evening baseball. By 1948, they phased them out. But I would have loved to see a game with the Dodgers at night with those satin uniforms. I didn't even know about those. Super cool. 1999, how about Tiger Woods, Eldrick himself, and Griffey. He's listening to Griffey talk about something. But that was at the Metrodome when they were playing the Twins in 99. Tiger Woods and Ken Griffey Jr. Pretty cool. Pretty cool shot. Nolan Ryan once threw a 13-inning, 235-pitch game. 3 days later, he threw 6 shutout innings against the Yankees. There will never be another Nolan Ryan. Could barely get to 100 pitches now. 235 pitches in a 13-inning game. He pitched all of it. 3 days later, he threw 6 shutout against the Yankees. He was the stud of all studs. Here's one. Mike Schmidt looking all stoned out next to this kid. And that kid is another Mike. And that's Mike Piazza. So Mike Piazza, a little kid, getting his photo taken with Mike Schmidt. And who knew he would grow up to be a successful major leaguer as well. This one cracks me up. Mickey Mantle and Joe Namath. They had a... it just cracks me up, but they had a job-seeking employer agency, and it was called Mantle Men and Namath Girls, Inc. Mantle Men and Namath Girls. Oh my gosh, within a year of founding, it became the second largest employment agency in the world, and then fizzled out in the early 70s. But yeah, They teamed up for an employment agency, and they called it Mantle Men and Namath Girls. That is just bizarre. 1933 Yankees opening day lineup. The most Hall of Famers ever in one of these lineups. They had 7 out of 9 future Hall of Famers in one lineup. That's just insane. That is just craziness right there. How about Hank Aaron sitting at a gas station? Some cutoffs. This was in Alabama in 1974. Funny thing is, this was a week before he broke Babe Ruth's home run record. Everything's all glitz and glamour now, but he was just hanging out, sitting at a gas station, eating something. In some cutoffs, a week later, he's breaking Babe Ruth's coveted record. Now this next thing is pretty cool for me. I immediately noticed what was going on with this shot. It's kind of crazy. But Nolan Ryan playing around. Of course, he was not known as being a hitter. He had a couple home runs in his whole career. Batted 110. But here he is playing around with the bat with the Angels. Just for the heck of it in the dugout. Someone taking some pictures of him. But I immediately noticed this must have been taken at the exact same time, and it was. So that slide that I have, the original photo slide that I have of Nolan, was taken at the exact same photo shoot by the same guy. So that's him. See if we can get it to focus here. There we go. So that's him fooling around with the bat in the dugout right there. I have the original slide. I don't know if a photo was ever made out of this slide or not, but from the 70s. You can see the red pads there on the bench. This was taken at the exact same time as my slide. So that is super cool. I saw that and I'm like, wait a second. I know that. So I have the slide of the little bit of the follow through. He's kind of goofing around with that wry smile. But yeah, same exact time those were taken. And I have the original slide of that one. So just very, very cool. Thought that was too awesome. Okay, last thing. We got to talk about Brady Feigl. Brady Feigl, 6'4" minor league pitcher, red-haired, beard, wears a black rim, protective glasses. No one probably knows this guy, but very, very interesting story here. Brady Feigl. So he is 53% Germanic history. He's 6'4". Brady Feigl is his name. Minor league pitcher. Redhead, bearded, with black protective glasses. But the crazy thing is, not only are these not the same guy, they're not even related. You heard me right. Both of these guys are minor league pitchers at the same time. Both of these guys are named Brady Feigl. Both of these guys look like that. They both wear those glasses. They both have those red beards. They're both 6'4". And they both had Tommy John surgery in 2015. They were first confused in 2015 when they went to the same doctor's office to get Tommy John surgery. Obviously their birth dates and stuff didn't match up. But Brady Feigl and Brady Feigl are not even related. They're both 53% Germanic. And that is a card of both of them. Not the same guy. Totally mind-blowing. 6'4", 6'4". This guy was born in 90. This guy was born in 95. But you would never know if you were thumbing through some cards. Both redhead, bearded guys, both wearing the exact same kind of black top rimmed protective glasses, sport glasses. 6'4", getting Tommy John surgery at the same doctor in the same year, didn't even know each other before that. And they did that DNA test just to see if they were related. They are not, but they are both 53% German ancestry. Both Brady Feigl, both minor league pitchers at the same time. What? Totally insane, totally mind-blowing. One of the craziest baseball facts I have ever heard in my life. Hope you enjoyed this, guys. Really appreciate everything you do. Thank you for everything. Thank you for being a part of this community. We will see you on the next one. Thanks, guys.